Welcome to the Workplace Minute, powered by H3HR Advisors and sponsored by WorkHuman. Thanks for joining me for your quick briefing on what's important in the world of work. My name is Steve Boese. Today on the show, we're looking at what lessons American companies and policymakers can take from the Netherlands, who has seen a reduction in working hours, better work-life balance, and lower unemployment, largely due to supporting women in the workplace. And we'll look at why this matters for the growth of the American economy. Let's break it down. Ever since the pandemic, American workers have clung to their remote schedules for as long as possible, as CEOs from tech to finance and even the federal government drag their employees back into the office. Loving the freedom that comes with flexible schedules, some workers are even pushed for 4-day work weeks. But for one small European nation, that dream has already become reality. Workers in the Netherlands between the ages of 20 and 64 worked an average of 32 hours per week in 2024, according to data from Eurostat. The country has the highest rate of shorter work weeks in Europe, followed by Austria, Germany, and Denmark, all with around 34-hour work weeks. In contrast, Americans employed full-time worked an average of 42.9 hours weekly in 2024, according to a Gallup poll, and that's actually an improvement from 2019 when U.S. workers clocked in at over 44 hours weekly. And it's not only North Americans putting on the grind, as over a third of employed people in the European Union spent nearly 40 to 45 hours on the job per week last year. But there's a primary reason why the Dutch have quietly shifted to 4-day work weeks: women. After women began entering the workforce in greater numbers, things would not be the same in the country. Like many other nations around the world, the Netherlands used to operate on a male-centered working model that placed men as the household breadwinners. The work weeks were longer, more like America's traditional 40-hour work week. But then women started to join the labor force, mainly in part-time roles back in the 1980s. And over the next few decades, women's workforce participation would shift the family earning structure and also change the country's tax laws. The Netherlands went on to adopt something called the 1.5 earning model, where one parent worked full-time and the other part-time. The new system was backed up by tax breaks and other benefits, and the new family working patterns became a standard among employees of all genders. Even working dads were taking advantage of the new structure, reducing their working hours to care for their young children. Today, the policy change is not only helping employed parents manage their caretaking responsibilities, it's also keeping people in the labor force, and that's even while other countries struggle with rising unemployment rates. In 1991, just as more women were taking on part-time roles in the Netherlands, the country's unemployment rate stood at 7.3%, according to the World Bank. Only a decade later, that number shot down dramatically. Only 2.1% of the country's population was unemployed. While there have been fluctuations in the years since, the unemployment rate has remained steadily low since 2018, and it currently sits at just 3.6%. Since its citizens have more flexible workweek options, they're more able to stay in the labor force while juggling their personal responsibilities. Now, comparatively, the U.S. unemployment rate stood at 4.3% in August, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. But with the U.S. population encompassing more than 340 million people, compared to the Netherlands with just about 18 million citizens, this 0.7% difference in unemployment rate represents millions and millions more Americans who are out of work. And there's one group of people who may be most at risk of being unemployed in the U.S., and that's women workers. Whether it be the increase in the return to office mandates, the increased cost or lack of availability of childcare options, or a changing social landscape, women are being pushed out of the workforce in large numbers. Between January and June of this year, 212,000 women aged 20 and older have left the American workforce, according to a BLS analysis. Meanwhile, 44,000 men entered the labor force in that same period. And in that 6-month time frame, the employment rate of women aged 25 to 44 who are living with a child under the age of 5 fell almost 3 percentage points. So why do these issues matter? Increased women's labor force participation has been one of the most powerful drivers of economic growth, innovation, and shared prosperity in the United States. When more women can bring their skills, experiences, and perspectives into the workforce, companies benefit from stronger talent pipelines, more creative problem solving, and better business outcomes. Decades of research show that gender-diverse teams are more innovative and profitable, and that organizations which foster inclusive environments are better positioned to attract and retain top talent. But these benefits extend far beyond individual companies. At the level of the overall labor market and society, women's participation boosts household incomes, increases consumer spending power, and expands the tax base that funds public services. In fact, many economists argue that the growth in women's employment has been one of the single largest contributors to the U.S. economic expansion over the last half-century. Policies and workplace practices that help women balance career and caregiving responsibilities, like we see in the Netherlands, like flexible schedules, paid family leave, affordable childcare. These also support women, but they strengthen families, reduce turnover, and enhance long-term economic stability. Ultimately, ensuring that women can fully participate in the workforce is more than just a question of fairness. It impacts national competitiveness and overall social progress. Building supportive environments where women can thrive benefits everyone, employers, communities, and the economy as a whole. And that's an important lesson we should take from what's been happening in the Netherlands. Thanks so much for listening. That's it for the show today. A big thank you to WorkHuman for supporting the Workplace Minute. If this episode made you think about how your organization is supporting all of your workers, please share it with a colleague. I'm Steve Boese, and this has been the Workplace Minute from H3HR Advisors.